Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday, which I'm recording definitely for the first time and not because I lost the footage. Yeah, I completely forgot that I actually recorded something yesterday and did not clear it from my phone, but I did upload it this time, so I don't have to wait for that procedure to go. So yeah, new place, new setting, and actual sun, because it seems that once a weight becomes lifted from one's shoulders, the world becomes much brighter. Which leads me, of course, to talking about the very thing that most people know about this week already, the release of the Mutant Girl Season 1 Episode 6 remake, and the subsequent 5th anniversary of the series. That's right, 5 years later has reached my own show, as well as the actual, as well as Afmal, which, you know what, we'll talk about her later. For now, I will definitely say that yeah, I'm relieved. Oh my goodness, already. You know, this is a calm area because we came up here once again, changes of settings. So, you know, still can't find me, but yeah, clearly still some stuff going on. So we're just gonna make our way back around here. But yeah, so the Mutant got released, and my goodness, yeah, after a week of intense editing at basically all hours, nearly pulling all-nighters, just staying just shy of doing those, and kind of avoiding pretty much everything and somewhat everyone else. Some people tried to check in on me, not realizing that I had clicked off of Discord because it was taking up CPU that I needed for the video. But yeah, I'm swallowed something. But yeah, I'm very satisfied with the end product, that's for sure. And yeah, this I was saying before in the other one that the Mutant Girl is kind of the place where I sort of indulge my perfectionism just a little bit more than usual. I did say that I'm reminded of this one video talking about the Nostalgia Critic that I can't remember who made, where they mentioned that he at one point reportedly said that he thought that the Moulin Rouge review from 2011 would be the artistic peak that he would achieve. Like this was the best that he could actually make anything. And at the time, he may have been right. It was a musical review with a bunch of collaborators, and it was done on the budget of a small studio. So I know, without the small studio. It was before the studio. So yeah, very much could have been the case. Sorry, I'm now trying to avoid the students in the cars that are all emerging at once here because as school time has come out. I'll go around here. There we go. Not that I am against necessarily walking past the school, but there wasn't really much room there. I think at some point Wilfie asked me if I was going to go past this school again, and I said, well, I don't go there anymore, so probably not, I'm afraid. But yeah, fun to think that, you know, people are enthusiastic about people vlogging still. What was I saying? Yeah, so I kind of felt the same way that Nostalgia Critic did in 2011, in 2019, that because the Mutant Girl didn't really improve too much on a visual level at that time. It had bits and pieces, don't get me wrong, but that was kind of it, bits and pieces and nothing else. But by watching Midori's stories and once again realizing there were more things that one could achieve, I tried to step it up with some moving backgrounds, some stock anime footage, and overall just trying to apply like some effects to the background and transition and such. I'm gonna have to go back. That's a downhill. I know that leads to the main road, so yeah, we're going back. And yeah, that kind of felt like, oh wow, this is what I can do. It still wasn't at the level of the Aftermath gachas that showed me what was possible, but I kind of chalked that up to audio quality, studio, lack of experience, just essentially practicing. So I guess I kind of, now I say that, knew there was other places to go, naturally. The question was whether or not I could actually go to them. I think it's safe to say that I have. Just by sheer virtue of learning what was possible and continuing to evolve the series. And again, indulging in somewhat of perfectionism just for the remakes. Because the remakes, for me, are the chance to do everything right that went wrong before. So that's why they get a lot of emphasis, and also because I don't want to get to a point where I want to redo those remakes and just keep going. My biggest concern at the time, as far as remakes went, was whether or not I would end up reaching a point where I would just be doing that all over and over. And by this point, the series was already stretching out and uploads were becoming less and less frequent. And I do acknowledge that, the times that I can hunker down and stuff, they're not, they're few and far between. And it's got to the stage in the series itself that I need to really take a step back and evaluate those things. So it might seem counterintuitive, for example, to move on to Gacha Life 2, maybe, because this was the first Gacha Life 2 Mutant Girl project that we did. It was a Christmas special, even though it came out when Gacha Life 2 was already a thing. We still use Gacha Club for it. I know it was going to throw the editors for a loop a little bit, but I was very keen to try things out for a number of reasons. And it kind of goes back to my philosophy surrounding making gacha videos in the first place. Because here's the thing, I mentioned this back when Gacha Life 2 first came out, that, actually no, you know what, I'll talk about that in a second. No, I'll talk about it now. I mentioned this when Gacha Life 2 first came out, that a lot of the people in the gacha community now were going through the shock of the change of games for the first time. I'd already gone through that with Gacha Club itself, and I guess technically also Gacha Life, because I started with Gachaverse, but I did one video in there, so I don't really count it. But yeah, when Gacha Club first came out, I had to make a decision whether or not to switch the Mutant Girl over to the new app or to continue in Gacha Life 1. And there was pros and cons to both, as with most things. The cons involved the fact that at the time I was branding the Mutant Girls as Gacha Life Animation, because that was what people were mostly trying to focus on and get more clicks and such. I know I'd have done that for, to brand those as a series. It was mostly, at the time, short animations or animation tests or gacha memes that were not really the hugely popular thing they ended up becoming, but they were making the rounds at the time. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do that, but for a whole mini-movie, and that's going to impress people who read the title. And then they'll see that there's, some advances anyway. It did not occur to me at the time to brand it as voice acted, because again, that community hadn't risen yet, and so suddenly voice acted gacha stuff became the main brand. Not to mention that Afman and Brandon heard stuff was like that, or even the people who made voice acting things, they just kind of read things out, and that was what kind of captured people's minds. But eventually, when the voice community, they did, they did start taking off, and it did become the thing that people really wanted to see the most of. Then suddenly, sorry, hold on. Then suddenly it was a good time to pivot. But even without that, the fact that you could edit things in the studio itself and not have to go back to the homepage every time you want to make a minor change to the characters. I wasn't so proficient in facial expressions as I am now, but I was still thinking about it, very much so. But yeah, that was, and then just the fact that you could still have the flowing hair and the animated mouths, even though they got rid of the poses for it in Gacha Club. That I don't mind. So for those reasons, I eventually made the swap, and that seemed to go perfectly well for all that time. So yeah, that was that. And then Gacha Life 2 came out, and so I saw people, there was a thing where, things got added, things got removed again. We can do custom poses now. But the problem was the copy-paste function did not work properly, so you couldn't build one off the other so easily. You also did not have access to the usual static poses everyone was used to, so if someone didn't want to take advantage of that option, they had no choice until a time when someone would make all of the static gacha poses as a pack and release those, which of course didn't happen immediately because you couldn't copy paste. Actually, that was the main drawback, and some of the promises that we implemented were not there. There's still no imported backgrounds even 5 months later. There's a bunch of art assets and everything, but not really anything else. There are animated poses now. I did use one of them, and it was all right. It was okay. So yeah. But again, and I guess that also Aiden has mentioned the lack of the preset eyes, as in some of the more cartoony expressions that weren't too cartoony for the shows that have the same tone as ours do, but there's still implied a little bit of like the anime reactions that we had by this point have grown accustomed to implementing thanks to Quadsy's insistence that we update our facial expressions. But yeah, even so, there are still some of those in there. And the other ones, like rolling of the eyes and such, there are still very much ways around those. So again, I do not mind. But yeah, I had to debate a lot of these things. What really swayed me towards Gacha Life 2 for the Mutant Girl nowadays is 3 things, I think. One, it's the community contributions that we've been able to make. Partly because, I set the precedent for, let's take the walking poses, and as did other people. They've been making like pose packs and such, and I thought, okay, let's do one for walking because that's what I use a lot. Which then led Aiden to find an improved way to implement those into the emulated Gacha Life 2 for us PC users, which then led to Bon uploading their own custom pose onto the Mutant Girl server specifically, which I could then use in the Mutant Girl itself, and I could then also adapt into custom walking poses that you wouldn't have in the normal default version, because now the copy-paste feature has been implemented because the official release is here. So even though not everything is fixed in Gacha Life 2, it's not the way that it used to be. it's not as stressful at all as it used to be back in the days of the People Above. When I say People Above, it's still going on. Back in the first episode of People Above, when it first came out. So there's a lot to take advantage of now, and there's a lot to really... There's a lot to think about. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the precedent that I set thanks to switching to Gacha Club, that the Mutant Girl would always upgrade itself to the latest Gacha game. The character of Morwenna has existed now in 4 separate Gacha games, and I'm proud that I'm one of the only people who can make that claim. Partly out of sheer stubbornness, naturally, but even despite that, doesn't particularly matter. But yeah, that was I like the idea of still having that evolve, and you know, it's still being, you know, the longest running Gacha series, again now 5 years old, and it's still, you know, evolving and changing. I like seeing that. The third thing, of course, is the fact that I found a way to implement animated mouths because of the evolution of I've done with editing, mostly due to the Mutant Girl. Again, by always learning how to find your way around the problems that Gacha presents, any of the games, they all have them, they're just different ones to each other, then you suddenly realize that, you know, you can work around these things and still take advantage of that infinite potential that Gacha life, or Gacha games in general, have, and that's what drew me to them in the first place. I was talking to Aiden on stream about this, we did the creator commentary, about how the difference between him and I, which we've talked about immensely, and one of the main things is how we respond to that adversity, which is also the reason that we have differing opinions on Gacha Life 2. Because for me, when presented with a problem in that way, I try my best to find a way to solve it, and, well, hopefully not, you know, stressing myself over it. If I find a way around it, even if it is tedious and time consuming, I will always make sure that if I know a way around it, that I can find one, or if I have to find a solution, then I'll do so. And normally that becomes a game changer for me, because that's how I discovered masking last year. When making the remakes, I accidentally chroma keyed Pete in a bad color, and I had to find a way to change him back. And so I thought, okay, how can I change the color of a selection? The video talked about masking, but I realized as I was going on, oh, they're mentioning making separate layers and just having some areas be cut out. That's all I need this time. I can just restore the original color that way rather than having to change the hue. But not only that, but also, if I could cut out particular parts of the video track without having to, you know, edit them in a separate app necessarily, although I then go on to do so, or have to try and, you know, reduce the selection in some weird and wacky way, and it would still be the same size, I could just do that. I can fix the issue I had with green screening eyes for the first time ever. In fact, I can fix the issues I'd have with green screening anything. And so suddenly, by that, I realized, oh, this is my new favorite editing technique. And I can also, you know, put people, blend them into the backgrounds if I'm, you know, extra careful with that. I can make them interact with props that I could not do so before. Like in the remake, Cardi and Terry in the original were just standing next to a park bench that was part of a Gacha Life 1 prop set, but I couldn't put them in front or behind it because they just clipped through it. But with masking, I could just put the bits to the top of them in post, and no one would know the difference. That's another thing about editing that I've realized. There was a specific piece of advice that Monet gave a while ago, talking about the issues that she had with the Mutant Girl, and one of which was that she said it was not very innovative. Now at the time, that might have been the case, because again, what's make the rounds, it's gone back nowadays to animation and such making the rounds, and you know, really evolving that way, having the lip syncing involved, a lot of those ideas. But when it came to the Mutant Girl, because you know, most of what we did was either subtle enough, or we were just used to it, or we'd made significant advancements back in the day which were now the standard, there seemed to be nowhere else to go, you know, without becoming exceptionally time consuming. And once again, training myself, because learning a whole new animation program, that would be a whole other ballpark. Even during the rise of Live 2D in 2021, when I considered doing that very thing, but I did not. I restrained myself. But yeah, and I didn't know during that interlude, where to go from there. This was after discovering masking. And again, some of those details you would think were just, you know, implemented props or stuff. You wouldn't know the process behind it. But then I kind of realized, I was watching the creator commentaries on DBZA that were done on the 4-Star Bento channel. Listening to Kaiser Neko, or Scott Frericks, talk about his process with editing is very fascinating, because he mentions a lot of the edits that have gone unnoticed in DBZA, but are just done to enhance the experience, and because again they're working with limited footage. He was finding solutions to problems the whole time, and only he knew the effort that was put in. But that's the job of an editor. It's not necessarily about making things as physically tell the difference. And for the first time, I think I found that place, because the animated mouths mixing with the custom poses is physically impossible unless you edit something. Then people know. There's also the sunshine filters and such that people might not clock onto immediately, but I also looked up lighting tutorials and things like that to try and help myself. But yeah, it's a very big success. Quasi did have to step in for that nighttime scene. But yeah, that nighttime scene is my favorite visual in the original. Even though, based on how rudimentary it was, and just the fact that there was two backgrounds that happened to be the day-night versions of each other, and that was basically it. But yeah, now I can definitely say those are composite backgrounds with rising and lowering tides, and an imported pier and Gacha Life 2 backgrounds with the one moving Gacha Life 2 background as well used in the footage itself. Yeah. Again, there's a lot to be said about that. And yeah, I'm happy about those things. Those ones you can physically see, but the other ones too. It kind of makes me realize that, yeah, the important thing with gacha editing is how it actually serves the story. Again, not just what can you do. Was I proud of the edits I did back in the day? Yeah. I mean, I still adore split screens, which I learned to do back in 2019. That was one of the things that I think did set me apart from other gachubers at the time. It never really caught on as a concept, but it was still cool to see. But yeah, that back to what I was saying about Aiden, actually. So yeah, where I find differences and try to find solutions and take pride in how those things go about, Aiden will usually avoid that process if he can. I think at one point someone did say that the Mutant Girl had more evolution and innovation than Fallen Angels, for example, but that was way back in the day. I think that might have also been Monet, actually. She has very contradicting statements at times, so yeah, I guess depends. Like back at that point, like I said before, it was more innovative than later because it kind of stagnated. So that's probably why. That's the reason for the discrepancy, I think. But yeah, back in the day, that was the thing that got mentioned, and might have been part of the staying power of the Mutant Girl specifically. But yeah, in the case of Aiden, it used to be a thing where I point out a lot of the time in the scripts what had been outlined versus what made it into the end cut, for example. And then Mrs. Dysart, there's a lot of there's more pushback that I get nowadays for some of the more subtle implements. Because again, it's a visual medium, right? So you have to put some of those things in. Focus on the story. Like I said before, if you can have visuals or story, always focus on story. But again, once you reach the point where you're able to have both, then make those strides and make the visuals suit the story, and don't try the way around. But yeah, with Aiden, he did actually say at the time in the stream sort of what kind of holds him back is that is the idea that he gets more pushback for a lot of things that he does or tries to evolve from. People will be much more critical of Fallen Angels than they will something like the Mutant Girl, especially back in the day. Although I think I can explain that one. That's mostly because the people who found Aiden's gacha videos probably found them through me. So even though Fallen Angels had a better visual start than the Mutant Girl, the fact that it stayed there, the Mutant Girl had already crept past a lot of those issues present. Even the subtle ones like only dialogue being present at the start, having very few moments of just visuals. That people thought it was a step back. And also the fact that they're very different shows anyway, despite the fact that Aiden very specifically pitched it to me inside of the connected universe of the Mutant Girl, aka the Butterverse. So already behind the scenes, people knew they were connected in more ways than one. And having the crossover later on kind of solidified that. It's hard to make something stand on your own when it's going to constantly be compared to the thing that came before it. So that was probably one of the major things. And then as time went by, like I said before, the evolution, or just the sheer, I guess, mentality that was kind of exhibited, that kind of enhanced that, which is why it's sort of Aiden sort of was trapped in a little bit of a catch-22. Because if he improves, he feels like he's going to get criticized for it and therefore not incentivized to try. But he also feels unsatisfied and wants to try more because he's being criticized for not trying. It's one of those things that you kind of have to... It's one of the things that can happen to you on the internet where there's two different camps. So go back to Team 4-Star, for example. With DBZA, some people apparently complained as the seasons progressed and the visuals became updated. There was just more to them. The episodes got longer. The background details that Kaiser was putting in became more exceptional. The mouths started matching up. All of that. People complained that they were trying too hard because it wasn't the simple parody that they wanted it to be. But again, Scott particularly was insistent about the fact that, yeah, we need to we should really grow. I have this respect for the source material, and I'm gonna make it the best I can. And there's also the aspect of respect for your own material too, especially in the case of Mutant Girl or any gacha show. So yeah, that's always what kind of drives me to breathe, even if it does mean that the episodes take longer. I've sort of adopted the Kaiser Neko editing mentality. And yeah, quickly as I watched all of those DBZA creator commentaries, especially, I was tuning in every week as they were coming out, all the way from the beginning. There was my respect and admiration for the man only grew for everyone involved with Team 4-Star, but mostly for him, because yeah, it felt like these are the things that I kind of needed to hear, or this is the kind of mentality that I was already sort of adopting subconsciously. I was letting my judgment be affected by some other stuff people had said before. And just the fact that, again, the real important thing I've been mentioning this whole time, the story. So, yeah. But I'm very happy with the way that the remake turned out, and I'm happy that I'm able to continue this 5 years later. There you go. Okay, just to briefly mention this at the very end, because I said I was going to talk about Aphmau later. One other thing that happened today, or possibly yesterday, was that on her community tab, she mentioned the return of a project sometime within this year. Now, the speculation in our circles is that this refers to My Street. It doesn't say that. It could be anything, really. It could be Void Paradox, like BB suggested, or I was going to say could be Minor Demons, probably not because of the shift in audiences. It could be Diary's Rebirth, for all we know. But yeah, it was a personal introduction as just the human rather than just the Aphmau, the Minecraft avatar, which is something more difficult to distinguish nowadays versus way back when. So yeah, that's a question that we have. It's probably going to be My Street, but who knows? So there's things on the horizon. As for me, I had a gacha comic idea this week, but I'm struggling to find ways to conceptualize it. And Aiden wants to continue writing more things we might have in the pipe works. As for the next episode of the actual release of Mutant Girl, even though it took forever, I'm sort of more motivated now. I have more knowledge of Gacha Life 2, and maybe we'll be able to include more of those things. Or maybe we already have. All to be talked about, but hey, hopefully, whatever project it might be, you will see a project from me once again sometime soon. But before that, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters, and subscribe to us already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.